Salve to discipuli, this is Magister Betty, and this lesson is going to be a massive review of nouns. The necessities. So make sure that you know 4 things about every noun. The cases are nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, or ablative. Numbers could be singular or plural. Gender are masculine, feminine, or neuter. Declension could be first, second, third, fourth, or fifth. Whenever you see a word in a sentence, the better you can identify these 4 different categories for that word, the easier it's going to be for you to translate. Let's talk about the principal parts of a noun. Verbs have principal parts. We've talked about that often, but principal parts for nouns may be somewhat similar. They do have them. Any dictionary entry is going to start with the nominative singular. The second entry is either going to be the genitive singular or maybe just the genitive singular ending. If the stem doesn't change, it'll just give you the ending. But if the stem changes, like ours, artis, it'll give you the full word for the genitive singular. Now, the reason why the genitive is the second entry is because the genitive is the only case where it is unique across the board. So if you see an AE as the genitive singular, you know it's first declension. An accented I, you know it is second declension, and so on and so forth. Take a moment, pause the video, copy these down, and write which declension next to it that it is. All right, case functions. If it's nominative, it's either going to be your subject or it's going to be a subject complement if it's in the predicate. If it's genitive, it's going to be possessive. Sometimes it might be a partitive genitive. Either way, you can translate them as of. An example of a partitive genitive is many of the boys or 25 of the cookies. Dative, most of the time dative will be an indirect object. Occasionally it will be your direct object. We'll talk about more about that in a second. The accusative is your direct object or the object of a preposition. And the ablative for now will always be the object of a preposition. Remember, English relies on word order to indicate function, but Latin relies on endings. If you don't know your endings, you're not going to be able to translate properly. All right, about that dative. Like we said previously, it is almost always your indirect object. There are some verbs, though, that like to use the dative as its direct object. These are 5 of them. Whenever you're learning your words, if it says plus dat in there, that means it takes the dative as its direct object. So make sure that you learn those. Okay, go ahead and copy down these sentences. Underline any adjectives or possessives, and then draw an arrow to their antecedents. That just means the word that it's modifying. Put parentheses around any prep phrases. That could be 2 or 3 words. Label every subject, subject complement, direct object, and indirect object. Notice we're only focusing on nouns here. And then write out a translation. Okay, first sentence. Because Alexandriae is modifying portu, we went ahead and put brackets around all 3 words. Multi is an adjective modifying naves. The only noun that hasn't been dealt with so far is naves. That's nominative. It is our subject. So this would be, we can actually read this one left to right. In the port of Alexandria were many ships. If we want to, we could start off with the subject. Many ships were in the port of Alexandria. Okay, we've got in rogum as our prep phrase. Sacerdotes. This es means that it's nominative. This could also be accusative. This could be nominative plural. It could be accusative plural. But when we look at effigium, this can only be accusative singular, which forces the sacerdotes into the other option. So this is our subject. This is our direct object. So the priests placed the effigy onto the pyre. All right, we've got in hoc urbe. Hoc is modifying urbe. They're both ablative. So this is our prep phrase. Tumultus is a direct object. It's accusative, plural. This ne here is not the ending. This is just a little attachment onto the end of the word, meaning that you're entering a question. Now, notice that we have no nominative. Since we have no nominative, that doesn't mean we don't have a subject, but we go to our verb, we look at the ending, and because the ending is just an S, we know that you is the subject. So, and since this is a question, we're actually going to start with did. So, did you see or do you see a crowd in this city every day. All right, so in manibus, that's our prep phrase. We've got two nouns to label here. Servi is nominative, it's our subject. Fustes is accusative, it's our direct object. Again, this es here, this could have been nominative plural, it could have been accusative plural, but servi has to be nominative. So that forces this into the direct object. So the slaves were holding clubs in their hands. All right, so dierum, this is a genitive modifying nomina, so it's possessing it. We've got two nouns left. Pueri, this accented I means nominative plural, so that's our subject. Nomina. All right, here's where knowing the gender of a noun really helps, because this a here, it could be really confusing. If you didn't know that this was a neuter noun, you might think that this is a first declension noun, that it could be nominative singular, but that doesn't make any sense because our verb is plural. You could not have a singular subject with a plural verb. So this right here is a neuter noun, and remember, neuter nouns always end in a for the nominative and the accusative plural. So that's how we know that this is accusative plural. All right, so the boys recite the names of the days. And then we've got de impetibus. We've got two nouns here to label, tabinarii and clementi. They both end in an accented I. If you know that tabinarii is a second declension noun, then you know that this is nominative plural. Clementi, if you know that this is a third declension noun, then this accented I has to be the indirect object. It is dative. So the shopkeepers were telling Clemens about the attacks. All right, remember, English relies on word order to indicate function, but Latin relies on endings. So know your endings. Valete discipuli.